Welcome to the Tennishackery podcast. This is episode number 24. We are a group of extremely nerdy tennis aficionados from the San Francisco Bay Area. Uh, my name is Tarun. We have Coach Craig and Soham with me. Hey guys, how you good? How are you guys doing?
Hey, Tarun. Thanks for having me.
Today, we are shooting this episode. This is a part two of a two-part series. The first was episode 33, which was about the serve, and this is what we complement the serve with, which is the return. So, before we start, let me launch into the marketing spiel. At Tennis Hackery with a Y is our social media handle. You can look us up by that search, and you can find us on Instagram where we are pretty active, Facebook, uh, and of course Twitter. The video version of the podcast goes to YouTube. The audio goes to Spotify, but you can look us up on your favorite podcasting apps, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google, or anything. So, with having said that, let's get started. Soham, how are you doing, man? Let's get going.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Tarun. Good to have uh, both of you and Craig, of course. Alex is working hard as always. We're definitely missing her, but we'll get to. Alex will be part of this episode in spirit because she's actually contributed a lot of things that we're going to talk about.
Right.
But it's been a rainy day, uh, so there's again, like I always say, there's nothing better than to be with the mates,
Yep.
with all of you,
Indeed.
and talking and nerding out about tennis.
Yep.
Is a very important episode. In part one of the episode, we spoke about serves, which is one of the things in tennis that the player is in control of. And today we talk about the return of serve, which is often a very under practiced sort of thing in tennis, right?
Right.
So um, there are many nuances, many elements of service returns. And we definitely want to start with asking Coach Craig to speak a little bit about 2, 3 step process for service returns, and then we'll take it from there and share a little bit of what Coach Alex teaches her students as well, and would love to reference some of her recommendations.
Yeah, for sure. So, like we talk about, the serve is so critical. We teach, even though that's an underutilized practice as well.
Right.
However, it's a control shot, right? It's the only shot in tennis that we have total control over. And then, as we talk about quite a bit in our pre-production meetings and just on the side, it's like, and then we talk about the return. And so if we talk to a client, it's like, all right, we are going to take control and impose our will and have your routine and dictate. And then it's like, then we go practice the return and they're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? You said like what, over there when we were serving, it's like we have total control. It's like, yeah, but we have to take some of that back. And that's what we're going to try to do in the return. So yeah, it is tough because you're up against it when you're returning.
Right.
And, but there are some things we talked about last time where if we have a serve routine, why can't we have a return routine? And if you look at the best returners in the world, maybe some of the best returners that you guys and I talk about and maybe even face and go up against in our competitive play, great returners, they have a set plan and a practice, and they try to take some of that control back from the server. And when that's done at a high level, it can be quite effective. And whether it's a 2 or 3 or 4 step process, everybody has their own philosophy. I know kind of how I like to teach it. It's more of the basic, try to keep it simple version. The KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And then I took some great notes from what Alex has provided for us in our content. So please, I'm sure we'll have that up at some point on our FFM model for Tennis Hackery. And it's definitely the liquid, the details, a lot of the nuts and bolts of what we do
Right.
that'll fill in the cracks of what I talk about. And the basics of what I talk about is if you have a serve routine that is addressing the line and you go through your routine and bounce the ball, you have your toss and your hit, we can kind of counteract some of those things on the
Right.
return side. So as our server addresses the line, we have a choice. Are we just kind of lollygagging at our baseline and not having any semblance of a court position, or a grip and stance that starts every stroke? Every stroke starts with a grip and stance. It's what we learn as coaches, and when we're taught by master coaches, that's what we teach to our
Right.
kids. First shot, whatever forehand or backhand is grip, and then how we stand. Same with serve. Um, Return should be no different. And then once we have our grip and our stance, what are we doing when that person our server is bouncing the ball? Are we looking at the ball? Are we staring into space? Are we thinking about our result? Like oh God, I got to get this over. I got to get this down the middle. I'm going to get this to the backhand side. Are we trying to be a little bit more hyper focused, like just look literally focused on the ball, looking at the black ink, looking for the seams, really being intense.
Right.
And that's what the pros do so well. They bring a hyper intensity to the game. And not that we're going to be pros, but there are certain things that we can steal and we can do for the 2 hours we're out in the court. There's no reason why we can't be hyper focused. It's something we can all do that does not take a elite athletic physical effort to do. So we're looking at the ball, and then we don't care if it's Roger Federer serving or Soham, right? Even though you
Yep.
guys are pretty close in your serving prowess, it doesn't matter who it
Yeah,
is. We
love to.
can,
I love the
we
comparison.
don't care who it is. We're looking at the ball. The server becomes an inanimate object, and then obviously in singles we want to get the serve deep down the middle. In doubles we want to keep it away from the net person. So we obviously have some things there. And then there's some details that we'll share when we go over Alex's contributions of, split stepping and timing, split and hit, pushing forward, shallow racket, take back. And if we're thinking about like a capital letter C for when we
Yeah.
do a ground stroke, it's the lowercase letter C when we're doing the return, things like that. So there's a lot of ways to chip away at taking some control away from the server. And definitely look forward to getting into the details. Those are three basic things that I talked about, but getting the details of what Alex shared, because she's taught and played at some of the higher levels in the
Yes.
world and continues to do so right now with some of the pros on tour. So yeah, I look forward to getting into it and doing the deep dive into the return and taking back some power away from those servers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should. Like Tarun is a big server, right? So now we can plan against.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
Uh, no, Tarun, you do have a good serve, but you know, I play tournaments. I teach juniors, and what I really want to ask you guys is some of the common observations that you guys see in terms of what are the two or three things that you've observed, both of you guys. First, Tarun, you can go first, then Craig, obviously. Uh, where people are like not making contact on returns, or they're missing returns, or what are they doing wrong? Is it like split stepping, not moving their feet, not getting low, not anticipating, not watching the ball toss, and like anticipating where the serve is going? And I know that Tarun, you're the stats guy. um, I know you have a very special sort of statistic that you want to share, so why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I'll cite Coach Craig O Shaughnessy's work, who was on our podcast a couple 2 3 episodes before. He based on his study of professional men's tennis data over a decade or so. What he says is the most common way the point ends in a tennis match is a rally of one, which is a missed return. So the percentages may vary. So it may not be 15, it may vary between like 15 to 30%, but it is the most common way a point ends in a tennis match. So, I mean, that shows that, I mean, the importance, like you make a return, so you are in the point essentially. So you have made the server do that extra work because the serve is not easy. I think it's one of the most complicated uh, parts of tennis. I mean, it's mechanically quite complicated. There's so many things that have to be right, as we discussed in our previous episode. So, as the server is coming out of the stance, if you just put the ball back in play, not necessarily close to the lines, I mean, and make the server do something, move left, move right, like jam them or anything, it just increases your chances of at least neutralizing the point, if not taking control. And so, to answer your question, I mean, I do see, especially among the adults. So, I'll talk about the adults first. At the 3.0 to 4.0 level, I do see that there is a certain lack of the routines that Coach Craig spoke about, but even the basic split steps, I find that many folks don't split step into their returns. It's
Mm-hmm.
just very static, and then people are lunging or stretching and reaching out for the ball, getting
Yep.
jammed. So some of
Yep.
those footwork elements I do find lacking in adult rec tennis.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Agree with you, and even some juniors who are starting
right,
their journey, right? It's just the lack of footwork, and they don't like their low wide base stance, bending, making sure you're bending your knees or you're getting low, right? To be ready. I like the ready position. I keep stressing that during some of my lesson sessions with the kids. And this is where I feel like we should talk a little bit. And Craig, please talk a little bit about what we learned from Coach Alex's sort of uh, um, what she teaches in terms of return of serves.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the devils in the details where being mindful and thoughtful on court. So, for instance, once you have your grip and stance, which every stroke starts with, as we talked about, are your feet actually wider than your shoulders?
right,
Are you stable? Are you a pyramid? And I talk about this with the juniors quite a bit. It's like, hey, there's these things called the pyramids. You're we want our feet wider than our shoulders, and guess what we look like when that happens? The pyramids. How long have they been around? Like, 3,500 years. Yeah, they've been around a while because they're sturdy, and that's what we need. If we want to take back some control from these servers, we need to have a sturdy foundational base that's strong and it's going to last for a couple hours. And then you get in that position over and over, and if we practice it more, we'll be able to get into that position more. And that will help load, get those leg muscles and push them forward. And if you're playing a big server, maybe we take some adjustments back in court position and to be mindful and thoughtful of who we're hitting against. Even though I talked earlier about, hey, that person is going to be inanimate at some point because we're hyper focused on the ball. The first step though is understanding, who is serving. So an example would be like Medvedev. His more comfortable being way back, and that's his comfortable court position. He's more comfortable creating time for himself as opposed to taking time away. And Coach Alex has given us those two options. It's like, hey, playing a bigger hitter, go ahead and sit back and give yourself some more time. Give yourself some grace to get the better court position so you can get that ball over the net. In singles, high over the net, deep down the middle. In doubles, away from the net person cross court. Um, and if somebody's struggling, maybe they don't have a big first serve, and you're feeling confident about your turn, take a step in and be more aggressive. And if you have that aggressive stance and that split step timing and that short backswing, we can start to maybe take some of that control away from the server. And that's those are some of the things in the first, step or two of the return that I think are very helpful from a physical standpoint. And then we talked about the hyper focus about really looking at
right,
that ball, like those baseball hitters, those great returners of the day, like Agassi, and really becoming. It sounds corny, but sometimes corny things are true. But really like seeing those seams on the ball
yeah,
and that black ink and just feeling that and understanding that relationship with the ball. I think some of the measurables, because Tarun, we talk about the measurables all the time, and
right,
you have all the data, and it's so critical to understand.
right,
But then, whether it's you returning or me returning or Soham or Alex or David Ferrer or Andre Agassi or Simona Halep or Iga Swiatek, we all have a feel to our game as
yeah,
well. I think that's important and a nuance and our own court position and our own style of returning. But I think when it comes down to the basics, like what Alex is talking about, having those muscles engaged and that wide base and the short backswing, all those things we can steal no matter who the pro is that we're resonate with or try to emulate. Those are all critical things that we can do to try to take control away, from the server a little bit, or even things out a little bit. If we talk about that arm wrestling match, right, that
Yep.
the servers tend to be here, but if we get the return in, Tarun, like you said, then maybe we're closer to neutral.
Yep.
I think that's a nice perspective to think about.
That's a really nice visual metaphor or symbol. Um, so I have a couple of questions, guys. And these are kind of situational. So with the theme of how Tennishackery goes, we have the FFM model, right? We even in our data-driven sort of analytic coaching that we provide to our clients, we break it down into fundamentals, fitness, and mind. Mind is more strategic stuff. But so there are a few elements that I noticed, like playing big servers. Obviously, I think position of your serve, where you're returning from, you can adjust, you can go back, you can give yourself a little bit more time, right? Whereas somebody who's serving, or even on second serves, or somebody who has less RPMs on their serves, you can probably step in, take time away. There is a saber technique that's famous. Roger Federer, people, I know some people who have tremendous hand-eye ability to take it super early and get it in and put a lot of pressure back on the server, right? So there are obviously strategically many techniques, and I know, and you guys can, vouch for this, is there are different strategies involved in returning during in a singles match versus a doubles match too. Obviously, in doubles, there are four people on the court. You're trying to figure out, okay, should I stay away from the volleyer at the net on the opposite side of the net or whatever. So I want to ask a few questions, and I'll start with, this is more strategic obviously, but there's also fundamental technique involved. Craig, one question for you is, oftentimes I see, whether it's a big serve, big flat serve coming in, or a swing serve or a kick serve coming in first or second, a lot of people who are right-handed players, they struggle and get jammed with body serves or serves which are on the backhand, on the deuce side of the court. What's the way? Like, I know that I have had that problem, and I know some of my other buddies also tend to struggle sometimes.
Especially the
Yeah,
one-handers.
so
Especially the one-handers. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
I have
sure.
one. Yep.
and then
Yeah, me
has
too.
its own issues.
Yeah.
So how do we fix that issue? What drills can we do?
Yeah, so I think part of that might go back to the hyper focused of understanding, like I talk about it as looking at the ball and being hyper focused on that. And then Alex's great details are understanding, being mindful of the server and their body contortion. So if it's a kick serve, that ball is going to be behind their head, their body's going to be contorted in a kind of a C-shaped, sort of position. And then a kick serve is coming. And you have two choices. You can come in and take it on the rise, or you can move back and take it, a little bit lower and then rip it. You're probably ripping it cross court at that point. But the reality with that is, I think you would, if you're going back, you're gonna want to take a forehand. So if you see that, and let's just take that as the scenario, it's a kick serve. I see it's a kick serve. I'm going to decide to take two steps back behind the baseline. I split, maybe stationary. And then I'm leaning, since I have created more time, more space between me and the server, I'm probably going to try to take that as a forehand. So I'm moving to my left. And now, as a right-handed player, it's easier for me to hit towards the left
Right.
cross court. So I take the poach maybe a little more out of play, not 100%, but I'm moving the position that I'm going to hit the ball, which is always fundamentally and biomechanically easier. If I'm going to take it on the rise, maybe I have a chance to take it as a backhand and still maybe take time away from the net player. So even if my return goes cross court and it's not as good as it would be on the forehand, relatively speaking, from a math or geometric standpoint, it's still good enough from a time. I'm taking time away from the net player that I can get it. I can get it by. So if I'm taking that split step in, like Alex had pointed out in the video that we talked about, you're coming in, short backswing, all your impetus is going forward. You can still get that inside out a little bit for a two-hander or a one-hander. Maybe taking that time away from the poacher at the net is going to help. So being conscious of that kind of serve and making a decision of what you're going to do
Right.
is critical. So that's a lot to process in like a microsecond, right? And
Yeah.
when we talk about our juniors who don't have the experiences that our adults have, but then we talk about our adults who maybe aren't playing as much as our juniors, as far as, oh, I play like twice a week and they're all matches. Well, they're playing twice a week in all matches, so how much are they practicing the return that we're
Yeah.
talking about? And if they are playing a lot, it's like, well, Craig, they are playing and they are getting returns a lot. Are they really grinding on them and practicing? Are they result oriented
Right.
and they're trying to win a point? And if you're trying to win a point, you really don't reinforce all the metrics that we're talking about and that Alex has talked about with the court position and the focus and the small, swing path, moving forward, the compact swing. There's a lot that we're missing if we're only playing
True.
matches. So
Mm-hmm.
if you might think you're getting a lot of return reps, but it's quality versus quantity. And like I said, it's a lot. Just the example I went through, the question that you provided, Soham, it's a lot to unpack just for one simple backhand or forehand cross court return.
Yeah.
And then to do that over 2 hours and be successful, you got to have some faith in the philosophy and then obviously execute.
It's funny that like when I play my matches, I feel like I'm more confident in my returns than the serve. And I don't know why, but that's probably because I practice. Maybe I'm more focused. Of course, I'm training to change that and make sure my serve is as good as return. So it's funny story that I tend to break quite a lot in matches, in singles, and then I get broken. So obviously, I have work to do. I should go back and study what we said in part one of the
Yeah.
so this is where all our episodes come in handy. Again, I have again two questions, one for Craig and one for you, Tarun. So Craig, Tarun, yeah, one for Craig. So strategically speaking, when somebody is trying to return, and this is what I tell with I discuss with my students too. They should have a visual idea, a plan before they return on where they want to go when they return serves. No matter what kind of serve is coming in, and generally, I say, you want to try to return deep, deep middle to the feet, close to the feet of the server. Is that a good plan, Craig? I know it may not always be possible. I'm talking about singles.
Yeah.
Doubles is different. Doubles, Tarun. So, Craig, you can answer that question, and I don't want to interrupt in between. So, Tarun, in doubles, because I know you play a lot of doubles, I would like you to discuss the lob returns.
Uh, should I go first?
No, let let
Oh yeah,
I
Craig. Craig, please.
let first.
So yeah, for singles, like anywhere deep down the middle, it doesn't even need to be at the feet. And here's depth. So depth is critical. We love depth is probably the most important thing, whether you're hitting hard or you're even hitting a high spinny shot. And obviously, for those of us who've been, if you go down and watch some of the really good juniors, some of the really good professional players, you go watch Indian Wells, you go watch practice matches, you go watch training sessions, they're hitting the ball way higher over the net than what we even realize. So on the return, they're looking at more of a control deal than like a hard deep shot. So if they can get it deep, it won't matter if it's hard. If it's hard, that's even better. But if it's just deep down the middle, what that does is two things. It limits the aggressiveness from a core position standpoint from the server, and then it limits their +1 angle.
Mm-hmm.
So now instead of having a clear choice to go deep angle or short angle. Um, they have a choice now. It's like, shoot, if I want to be aggressive and hit a forehand, obviously that's huge on tour, right? Serve plus one forehands.
Yeah.
People are trying to hit
Right.
75, 80% forehands. But if you hit it deep down the middle, even if it's a forehand, the margins are not negated, but they're way slimmer than if you hit a ball even to the backhand corner. Well, now all of a sudden, if you're playing any of the top players or any top junior will tell you a lot of the two-handed backhands out there are great, or neutral balls are high and spinny deep to the backhand. Well, I mean, what junior or really good player, even tour player, is hitting a really great shot from 6 feet behind the baseline with a two-handed backhand? It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, it's the reality is you can't be that aggressive, with a deep ball down the middle. And even though you can't be that aggressive with a deep ball to the backhand, the angles are more prominent. And the
Right.
bigger and taller and stronger you get, if you don't get that ball deep as you want on the backhand side, then all of a sudden the angles become, a little bit easier. So deep down the middle is number one. Deep to the backhand would be number two.
Mm-hmm.
Playing to his strength certainly that's a whole different deal. You want to play to his strength to open somebody's weakness. That's certainly a thing too. We'll get there, but yeah, I think anywhere deep down the middle, regardless of the heft of the shot, as long as it's a spinny heavy ball and doesn't have to be a hard heavy
Right.
ball, I think is totally a great way to start. Tarun, I know we have had discussions on the court and off the court regarding the doubles return.
Yeah.
Real quick, touching on the doubles return cross court or incorporating the lob. Tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the lob return, and I'm proud to say Coach Alex will agree with me too, because we had this
Yes, she
discussion
would.
on court when we were playing doubles. Soham and I were playing against Coach Alex and Coach Craig. Needless to say, we got killed. Um, I was trying to drive my returns. Their serving was too good. It was tough for me. I started to lob. It worked for a few points. But that's just anecdotal. But I think I will again reference Coach Craig O Shaughnessy's interview from 3 episodes back, and we'll link that in the show notes. He mentioned that in doubles, the aim of the returner should always be to make the ball bounce on the other side. Now, if you can, which is basically what Coach Craig just now said, like avoid the net player, get the ball to bounce on the other side. So, lobbing is one way to do it. I mean, you lob over the net person or go cross court. I like the lob because it kind of keeps the net players honest. Like if they're getting too close to the net, trying to pick off a weak ball. So I kind of, it's more strategic, right? So if they're standing too close and they're cutting off your cross court balls, or if they're playing Australian or the I formation and they're really good at running it, uh, the lob keeps them honest. They tend to go back. They're looking for the lob to hit an overhead, and then you can go cross court, because that makes the cross court volley a bit tough for them. So things like that. So I really think the lob is a very high percentage. Lob return is quite high percentage, and I think you will see that at the pro level too, especially in the women's game. So that would be my take. I use that a lot, and I think it works.
It definitely does, and in fact, especially when there's a strong net player,
Right.
and and potentially a strong net player, maybe let's say they're playing with like a weaker net player who is either weaker at the net, or potentially someone who's good at the net but weaker from the back.
Right.
You want to definitely take advantage of your strengths and pounce on the opponent's weakness.
Right.
So oftentimes what I've done, and again, I know one of my friends who actually uses the lob a lot in
Yeah.
doubles, because that's like his one of his ace strokes. He's actually using that as an attacking stroke. Is It's very hard in doubles when you lob over a strong net player, and both you and your partner push in to
Yes.
at the net, and you're crowding the net, and the player who is trying to return the lob back
Yep.
is not a very strong player.
Yeah.
You're already in an advantage because you're being aggressive,
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to pass two players who are good at the net in doubles.
Yeah.
So it's a very good play for sure against strong teams. And one thing that I want to mention, Tarun, you mentioned, teams often play Australian or I formation. There
Yes.
was this match that I played against two like high 5-0s. And we were like, I don't know, low 5-0s or something at that time. And one of the guys did literally our opponents, he did I formation the whole match. And we were having so much, and he's such an amazing, he played in college. He's such an amazing mover at the net. Like we could not, for crying out loud, pass the guy, whether we went down the line, whether we went middle, whether we went cross court, every single time, we could not pass the guy at the net. That entire first set. So in the second set, we are like, okay, what do we do? Like we need to take this guy out of the point.
Yeah.
So we started lobbing and we had a ton more success. So definitely, like strategically speaking, in doubles at least, we need to navigate and read this situation
Yeah.
and employ certain strategies, right? In
Yeah.
singles, it's a bit difficult. I don't think I have ever lobbed a return. I mean, I am trying to bunt it back sometimes, Sometimes I slice it, if I can. Lob is a little bit more difficult, but Craig, one thing I definitely do not do, and I have seen some juniors try to do this, who are trying to play flashy tennis or whatever, is they're trying to hit winners on the from returns. I'm like, dude, like hitting winners from serve returns is not a good idea. You need to get the ball in play, like Coach Craig O'Shaughnessy mentions, right?
Yeah.
Basically, effectively, what he's saying is put the ball in play, right?
Yeah.
And start the point, whether it's singles, doubles, right? So some of the students that I teach initially, they were trying to hit winners because it looks good. Oh, I can hit a winner off a good serve. Oh, that makes me look like a great player. Does not work like that. You have to construct the points, right? You have to be strategic with your returns. Um, Craig, again, question for you, right? So let's talk about strategy and scenarios during a match. Whenever you have played, do you have certain planned returns? Let's say you are playing on the ad side. I know you have a great backhand return. You're playing on the ad side. It's like 15-40. You have two break points, right? Does your type of return change, singles or doubles, versus let's say you're up, let's say you're down, um, down in a game and it's like a critical game. Like, do you change your returns based on the situation you're in a game or in a match?
Yeah, I think at some point, points slash score has something to do with the philosophy. I think generally speaking, we're trying to get the ball cross court away from the net person. If you're thinking about a dot on the, if I'm Soham, you're talking about the ad court return to my backhand. I'm trying to get the ball. Like if I'm talking about my return routine, I'm going through hyper focused. I got my grip and stance, like Coach Alex has said. And now I'm gonna split and hit with my short backswing with my legs and driving forward. I'm trying to hit that single sideline slash service line, that little corner, that little single sideline and service line corner. That's kind of like my general idea, stock 80% of the time. Now, if it's 15-40, we're up in the game. The server is serving 15-40. We have 40. And it's like, they're serving 1-4, 15-40.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give it a rip. I've got some intel on,
Yeah.
they've now been through serving to me twice. I've gone through two games of service with them to my backhand. I kind of maybe have an idea of what they can do and what they can't do, what to expect. Listen, whether it's me or you or whoever we're scenario is we're playing at 1-4, 15-40, It could be Roger Federer. He's not as confident at 1-4
Right.
15-40 as he is his 4-1 40-15. So I know we have that in our favor. So I'm probably going to let something rip and try to set up my partner.
Yeah.
If it's 15-40 4-4 in the
Hmm.
first set of a tight match, and it's, a big deal. I'm getting that ball in and trying to get into the net,
Hmm.
and it's more conservative with the court position. It's more conservative with the shot selection and maybe more aggressive with the court position afterwards, where I'll maybe shorten the swing, try to do more of like that non-exotic saber,
Yeah.
because none of us can do it as well as what has been done with some of the pros. But you bunt it back, you get into the net, and you try to set up your partner or get in something defensive, or they're hitting up. And if you get it deep, maybe you get a lob, which I think encourage us to. When we get a lob, we like that, and we don't like say, "Oh no, there's a lob that goes up, and what do I do now?" We want a good high defensive lob, because that's an overhead for us and an opportunity to win the point. So yeah, score dependent, I think, does, it's good to be mindful and thoughtful of that. But I think the stock return cross court is important. Now, if you have an active net player, Soham, like you talked about, and they're in the I formation, let's say it's the same scenario, you just got to pick. You have to pick, am I going down the line or am I going cross court? And do I have any intel based on?
Hmm.
So you might say, oh, after the first set, what do we do now in a debrief after, going into the second set? But if it's still in the first set, Soham, at like 4-3, and the serving partner is causing you chaos, then the more important question is, what do I do at that point? What intel do I have? Do they tend to go cross court, on the out wide? Are they staying home? When they get a T serve, what is he covering? Is he covering down the line? Is he staying at home cross court? We have to be mindful and thoughtful of what some of the patterns were. And then if they're really savvy, is he going to change the pattern, or is she going to change the pattern at those critical moments, or are they
Yeah.
going to stick with what they do? So, yeah, again, a lot to microprocess in, little bits of time, but that's tennis, and that's what makes it beautiful and hard and awesome and difficult all at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot to unpack there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I asked that question is because in tennis, right, as juniors and adults, right, tennis IQ and reading the situation is so important, and that's actually builds confidence over time as we get more experience, as we play more, and these are critical as baby steps
Yeah.
to be successful.
Yeah.
For example, like anybody, like I know Craig, you have a single-handed backhand, right? And if you're playing on the ad side, very likely I might do a kick serve high on your backhand single hander out wide. So that could be my go to serve if I'm trying to win a point, unless, of course, you figure it out and maybe, I don't know, you lob over the net player, or you take it early, maybe don't let in a kick serve, you take it early and you go cross court. So obviously it's you're playing chess, right, between the server and the returner,
Yeah.
which is why it's so
Mhm.
fascinating.
Yeah.
As a returner, I love returning a lot, because it's like, and this is where I want to get into like examples, dude. Like I see Novak like breathe and close his eyes, visualize white base, whatnot. Andre used to do it. I love Andre. He was inspirational for me. But I think one thing I really appreciate about Novak is his return of service insane. He's flexible. He has amazing reach. And the next thing I want to talk about is the recovery after returning serve. These are some of the things which are critical. So, Craig, and then of course Tarun, you please chime in. Talk about these amazing returners. Like, what are they doing right? Is it their visualization? Is it just they focus a lot more on return of serves? Because they're Andre and Novak are two of the best returners.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think Novak has in the last 5, 6 years has reinvented the return, and it's starting to be copied now by a lot of players, especially with the two-hander. So what has traditionally happened in what we talked about today, I think for 90% of the mere mortals on the planet, it's common sense. Split step, move forward, short, shallow swing, wide base, boom, cross court, or deep down the middle. Excellent. That's great. And that's going to work a lot. If we grind on that, we'll be good returners. We'll have great percentages. We'll start to even out that arm wrestling match that we talk about. What Novak has done in the last, I mean, these 5 years has flown by, so maybe it's like 7 or 8. I'm not sure. But what he has done, instead of the split step where he splits and lands and then opens the gate, like what we call it. So let's say, Soham, we go back to your um, he gets a second serve, kick serve on the deuce court to his backhand.
Yeah.
What he'll do is instead of split stepping and landing and then opening the gate and then stepping in, he'll rise up for his split step, see where the ball is going, open the gate in mid stance
Yeah.
to his backhand or like
Yeah.
he will literally
Yeah.
open and turn like without the full 100% split step, if I'm making any sense. Like he won't land and then turn. He'll in midair open the gate to his backhand or his forehand. And it's just it's rejiggered the whole
Yeah.
deal. It's
It,
absolutely when you watch it, it's just like how like that's just so sublimely genius. It's wild. So instead of split and hit, it's like half of a split,
Yeah.
turn, and then hit. And
Yeah.
now you're like way ahead of the server because instead of the server taking time away from you, you're taking time away from him or her. And it's like, whoa, how'd you think of that? That's just why. And then you think of it, which is crazy enough, but then you actually do it
Yeah.
and execute it at a high level. It's insane. And he's done it. I think I've not really broken down like who's doing it and who's not, but you could probably look at the Sinners and Demonars and maybe even Carlos.
Yeah.
On the women's side, you probably have, a lot of players, who are doing that with Iga.
Yes.
It's pretty impressive some of the footwork that's happening out there. Who did I send you guys the other night? The video of watching the wide base of the feet. What did I send you? Do you guys remember? I sent you. I said just watch the feet of this player, and the base was so wide on this player. It was unbelievable, and
I don't know
it
who it is, Craig, but I know I sent a recent video about the graceful footwork of Roger Federer.
Yeah, it was. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
it was amazing, and just to watch him, his footwork and the saber, and it all goes back to what Coach Alex said about a wide base, and then that's the stableness
Yeah.
of your body. Your head is between your feet. You're not over your skis, so to speak,
Yep.
and then you can. It makes half volleying a return. It's the sublimeness that we talked about with Novak right
Yeah.
now. Roger did it in a different way, his own special way.
Yep.
And actually, you know who did that actually before that, 35 years ago, was Paul Anacone.
Yeah.
And
Right.
a quick story I have, like 1985 maybe, I was at the US Open. I was on an outside court, in the court 17, 18. I was watching Paul Anacone versus Slobodan Zivojinovic. And Slobodan had a massive serve, and he was like 6 foot whatever, and he had this little keg of a beer belly. It was so hilarious. But he could rifle a serve. Do you remember Kevin Curran?
Yes. Yeah.
So he had a
Yes.
massive serve, but he was super tall and thin and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but he had a serve like that, and he was like Slobodan was like this big guy, but he could crush it. And Paul Anacone showed him zero respect, and he was like 2 feet from the
Wow.
service line, just one-handed backhanding these returns and coming to the net and chip away a forehand volley. And I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then, 30 years later, you see Roger do that, and a lot of people right now might not understand that that wasn't necessarily all Roger.
Yeah.
A lot of that talent and giftedness was and hard work. I mean, Roger,
Yeah.
as you know, if you've studied him, works crazy hard, harder than most people realize. But some of that seed was planted by Paul, and that he could do that, and he's got that hyper focus, that all those things that Alex and I are talking about, combining into these things where you can half volley your return, and it might not matter who is serving it. And that's the video you exactly shared, Soham,
Yeah.
which was so entertaining. It was great to watch.
Yeah.
it
The footwork with these guys is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's in,
But yeah.
like Tarun,
Yeah.
like uh, you coach juniors, right?
Yes.
Like I'm sure you have to stress footwork when you
Yes.
dance and in your recovery. And one of the things I want to specifically ask you is, we work with clients. We have been doing a bunch of data-driven and analytics. What are some of the observations that you're seeing in terms of these 14, 15-year-old or 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old juniors with their serve returns? Can you talk about some of your observations?
Yes. So the thing is, it depends on the skill and the power levels. So what I see is, so I typically correlate it with the average rally length of a match. So if you're having 12 and under, or like 12 to 14 year olds who haven't developed the power and the skill competing, typically the average rally length will go between 4 to 5 shots. That means, they're developing the power, so long grinding points. So the average rally length is kind of between 5. So there I see that more returns are actually in play. So a lot of returns are actually made because the serves are not that big, and they just make the return. It's just they just bunt it or just place the ball. If they're well coached, they actually do that. They don't go for winners. So I have seen that trend. Uh, Older, more skilled kids, I have seen that the average rally length of the match typically is a good predictor of the amount of returns that have been basically put in play. So, uh, for instance, to give you a reference point, UTR 5 to 6 level girls, I have seen that the average rally length of the match is between 3.8 to 4.2, which is slightly on the lower end. Good power exchanges. So again, this is not general rule of thumb, but this is an interesting correlation. So there I see that the serves are big when you go and look at the video. So you look at the stats, then you go look at the video, because the stats have to be seen in context. So you look at the video and then you can see that yes, the serves are good, and the return, you can see higher number of return errors because of some of the errors, common things that Coach Craig mentioned, like not split stepping, not going with that discipline or with that focus, making contact sideways or trying to go down the line. Like they see a weak second serve, they want to crush it down the line. Error. Things like that happen. So the other trend that I noticed in one of the matches that actually you played with your buddies, I think all four were very high 4-5, borderline 5-0 players. You and your partner won the match, and in that match, the biggest predictor for the win was uh, your teammate made most of the returns in play because all four were serving very well, had good serve percentages, double scored, aggressive tennis, but the winning team, the thing that correlated with winning was more number of returns that put in play, and your teammate actually had that winning stat. So
Do you think in general, I don't know, obviously, whether we have analyzed a whole lot of matches. Do you think, or would you predict, the team that's making better returns, higher percentage, are more likely to win in doubles?
yes, highly contributing factor to
Why?
yeah.
Why do you think so?
It's just because you're neutralizing the net player. Because in doubles, the average rally length in a doubles is 3 shots or less. It's like boom, serve return doesn't come back as we saw in singles, or serve return bam, the net player finishes off, the serving team's net player finishes off the point. We're of course talking like good level of doubles, and if the return goes in play, you're keeping the ball away from the net player, and then your net player is now also in the game. Now the return team's net player is also in the game, and as the rule goes in doubles, right, the first team that hits a good volley or makes the other team hit up uh, typically takes control of the point. So that rule applies. Like good solid returners can make that happen. So kind of turn the tables on the serving team.
Do you think the same is true at the pro level, Craig? That people who return well usually have a higher chance of winning the match?
Yeah, I think when you look at the best doubles teams in the world in this generation, they're less about serving and they're more about returning, unless you
Yeah.
get the one-off doubles teams like when Kyrgios would hook up with Kokkinakis. You get some of the singles players, but so they might win a couple matches because on the doubles tour, the serves aren't as big. So you might see some one-off wins by some of these, especially at like the early tournaments at the before the Australian Open and Indian Wells, when a lot of these guys are trying to get reps in, even the ladies. But a lot of that stuff evens out as you go deeper into these doubles
Right.
draws, where really returning is way bigger, and especially a lot of these doubles matches going into 10-point tiebreakers.
Right.
So if you win return points in a game, that's making headway, but it might not really show garner results. But all of a sudden, once you get to the 10 pointer,
Mm-hmm.
then that change all of a sudden exponentially, that
Right.
all those becomes relatively bigger, right?
Yeah.
So one return now is not just a 15 or a 30 or a 40. It's 1 point out of a
Yeah.
potential 10, or it's the sample size is it's much more impactful. So yeah, I think on the pro tour, whether it's men's or women's, the serve is a lot less critical. It's the return, it becomes paramount. And you probably get back to 50%, maybe
Yeah.
like way faster in doubles than maybe we even realize.
You know what I feel is even if it's like a big server, let's say, right? And you're able to actually return more than 50% of those serves, I think it puts a a pressure on the server that, damn, I'm not used to balls coming back. I'm used to like winning those
Yeah.
points like ace or a return that does not get back in play, or an easy sort of surplus
Yeah.
one. And if you have somebody who returns well,
Yeah.
automatically the server might, and I've actually seen this. There's a time I played a match, and I've also seen it multiple times as a spectator, where suddenly a big server is not getting that success of getting free points, then their serve level drops.
Yep.
They lose a little bit of confidence, they get a little tight, little nervous, and then automatically like the whole match changes.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
I think being a good returner, or like in general, has a lot of advantages
Yeah.
because A, you can break more often. That puts more pressure on the server. And then if you have a decent serve, there is more pressure for the other guy
Yeah.
to break back. And I have not seen too many people who excel at holding serve and breaking at like a 4-5-5-0 level.
Yeah.
Either somebody has a good serve, weaker return, or they have a good return, weaker serve,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like from general observation and playing a lot of these matches and tournaments is if you have a pretty good serve, not big necessarily, a pretty good, and you can serve smart
Yep.
and have patterns in your serve and switch it up, but you have a really good return, I think you're much more likely to win matches.
Yep.
So Soham, I totally concur, and I have a story for you that will come close to ending with here. We both know probably who I'm talking about, but I've been blessed enough to be a part of a team a year and a half ago that went to 50 plus Open Nationals, and we played against a guy, and I played with a guy who, at a Nationals match in Las Vegas, missed three returns over the course of two sets and a 10-point tiebreaker. And by the time the 10-point tiebreaker came, the servers were such a mess that what they had in the first set wasn't the same level that they had in the second set. And by the time the third set, the 10-point tiebreaker came, our returner friend, who missed three returns the entire match, watching this from the sidelines as the equipment manager, basically. It was just to watch these guys fall in shambles because of the pressure that a returner put them under, because he's probably one of the best returners in the country at his level. It's just unbelievable to actually see it. So to talk about it and have the data is one thing, but to see
You're right.
the way a returner physically, a great returner can impose his will, just kind of like we talk about the
So,
server
yeah.
usually it goes to the testament of what we're talking about tonight. It can happen. These players sure are blessed with great gifts, whether you're Novak, whether you're these players, great players in Northern California who have great returns and take pride in that, or you're just a grinding adult or junior player here in NorCal. It can happen. You can take some of this control back, if you just fight and grind and work on it and be mindful and thoughtful on the court and take some good percentage tennis and put that into your curriculum. It can happen. And, that's what I hope, all of our players and listeners can take a little sample size of and go out there and do it.
For
That's
sure, for
that's
sure.
awesome. Yeah, that was a fun discussion. I'd just like to make a small announcement that once this episode goes up, you will see it on all the socials, and people who DM us with a query or with any kind of engagement or comment will get a free copy of Coach Alex's video that we were talking about. So again, another so putting together more incentives for people to engage with us on social media. So again, at Tennishackery is our social media handle. We are extremely active on Instagram. We are on Facebook, X. The video version goes to YouTube. The audio version will go. You can find us on your favorite podcasting apps. Uh, Again, please like, share, subscribe, and we have come to the end of episode number 34. I hope this was extremely informative for all of you watching or listening, as much it was for me, just listening to Coach Craig and Soham in this highly engaging discussion. So, with that, we come to the end. Thank you. Bye.